We do, but we don't have Bob.
We don't have Bob, right? And we don't have Linda. And we know Meryl is not coming.
Yeah.
So my apologies, you guys, to just unilaterally say we're meeting at 5:30. I'm in, oh, here comes Bob. I'm in Cleveland. I'm doing a CARF survey, looking at another organization like Minuteman. And I just was worried I wouldn't get back to the hotel in time to start a meeting at 5. So my apologies. I should have reached out to you to ask if that was convenient. And I know, Jennifer, you have to go right at 6. So we'll see if we can jump into this agenda and get going. Can you guys see the closed captioning?
Yes.
I turned it on.
Yeah, I can see it. But what it says is, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I see it now. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I do.
Yeah, it's just a little words at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah.
No, you don't see it, Karen? I wonder, do people have to set
I
that
don't
up?
see. Yeah, I don't see it now. I did at first. What I saw at first is it said closed captioning is available. And then I touched, it went away. Now I don't know.
There's a thing on there that says closed caption down on the bottom of the screen. Where
Says the
participants share
participant has
screen.
enabled closed captioning. Who can see this?
Yeah,
Darn.
so you might have to go to the icon with the 3 little dots. And if you touch that, you'll get a list of things like sign in as host and stuff like that. If you go to the 4th item down, it says captions.
Oh,
Yeah, right there.
show, yeah, mine says show captions,
There you go.
but I still don't.
I have it now.
Sorry.
Okay. All right.
Oh, okay,
Okay, good.
thank you.
You're welcome. All right, good. We're successful at that. So let's do the approval of minutes from last time.
Let's open the meeting first. Want to call the meeting to order, Jean?
Oh, all right. We'll call the meeting to order. It is 5:35, actually.
Okay. Any problems with the with the minutes?
Janet, I just have one issue. My last name is Brooke, Brooke.
What did I say?
and Brooks with an S.
And
Oh,
it's,
You just have to take the S and turn it into an E and you'll be all set.
Okay.
and make the first be a capital.
And make the first.
So change
you.
BROKE, change it to E.
Correct. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Any other changes to the minutes? Does someone want to move to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
I would second.
Okay. All in favor? Oh, Janet, I guess you have to call people.
Oh, okay. I always forget that. I didn't know I had any real power. All right, Jean,
Approve.
Jennifer,
Oh, yes, approve.
Karen,
Yes, approve.
Mary Beth,
Yes, approve.
Robert Andrews,
I approve.
and Linda. Linda is not a member, right? Is that
Well,
still?
that still remains to be seen. It appears that you are actually a voting member, Linda.
Okay, then Linda. Well, okay,
She's
She's muted.
okay. I'm just gonna put down unanimously.
Oh, I just got an email from Lloyd saying something came up unexpectedly and he won't be able to attend. All right. So Junction Park. One of the.
Did anybody
co-chair-
second the meeting? Mary
Yeah,
Beth-
Jennifer did.
Jennifer did. Okay,
Okay. Junction Park, I met with one of the co-leaders of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, Nate. And he asked if we could get together and just talk about the concerns about the rail trail. It seems that the concerns from the rail trail committee are similar to the concerns of our commission in terms of safety. What he is suggesting, which seems to me like a good idea, is that let's do sort of a trial with the planters, get the planters without dirt and plants and so forth in them, and try setting them in around wherever, on the edges, in the middle, wherever, and try that with some people on bicycles, some people who use mobility devices, some people who are walking, maybe a parent pushing a stroller, and see how it works, and then make a determination of where should planters go. So,
Jean, I can,
yeah.
if you don't mind, I can add to that.
Please.
Right after our meeting last month, I reached out to Marcia Rasmussen, who's our town planner.
Right.
And she is spearheading this from an organizational perspective between the stakeholders and the select board. She wrote to me, and I'll share, I'm happy to share all of it, but the part that I think is most relevant to what you're talking about now, she wrote, "My thinking is to purchase the 9 planters and then invite members of the various stakeholder groups and public to come to the park and move and place the empty planters in potential locations, see how they feel, test them, to understand how they function before any final determinations about location are made." So I feel
Okay.
like that is in line with what you just said, and it sounds like that, given her position, that's more likely to happen.
Yeah. Well, I agree. So it's likely that's not going to happen until spring at this
Right.
point.
Right.
But it looks like all, maybe not all, but many of the interested parties are feeling like this is a good way to go forward.
It will also address our main concern, which is that the planters are going to be obstacles rather than impediments to riders who
Right.
don't want to get off their bikes, or speed. So I think this will
Yeah.
give everyone a chance to make sure that it works if they're going to leave them there.
Right.
Was there any discussion about how long a trial period would be? Is this like a week or a full day, a few hours? Just a little confused by that.
No, as far as I understand, Mary Beth, no. As we all know, sometimes trial periods lead very quickly into permanent with some of these
Yeah.
things. But that, what I understand is that Marcia, like, no final determinations will be made about anything until everyone understands, sees, and agrees on the terms. So there's nothing set in stone. She did want to. I asked her about the vigilante installation of cones and signage out in the park as well. I can tell you it's a little bit related, Mary Beth, to what your concerns are, like about establishing the ground rules. She said she's hoping to address the situation by reaching out to the police, public safety officer, and Concord Public Works highway and grounds superintendent. She's planning on having conversations with Green Thumbs and the owner operator of the Club Car Cafe. Her
Mhm.
staff, and she would will work to remove the draft signs and sign boards next week. And this was sent to me on the 11th of November. So
That's good.
she should have been out there already to monitor that situation.
Great.
I'm happy to go back to her with any questions that our commission has, and be the liaison, to planning in that way. If
Well,
you'd like me to ask more
What
specifically, Mary Beth.
what do other people think is a fair trial period?
Typically, Mary Beth, I would recommend at a minimum of 3 months
Oh, okay.
to get the full range of feedback.
Janet?
I would think that we would have to wait until spring to do anything permanently because involves So I would say the trial period is until we can do something permanently. That the trial period would be till spring. That we can just call that a trial period. Unless there's some reason why we need to make a decision.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're going to be the ones selecting how long the trial
Yeah.
period is.
Oh, okay.
But it's
No.
certainly a good question.
And it's definitely something that Marcia is leaving open as part of that public
Yeah.
input when the
Mhm.
planters come. My personal feeling is that the way the planters will be arranged will not be the way that we think that they're going to be arranged right now. As nothing ever kind of works out that way once you get them out into the real world and they get
Right.
tested. So
Right.
that could probably, I mean, that would probably be true for the time trial too.
Yeah.
The goal originally, just for clarity, the goal originally was to install a short-term solution. If the short-term solution solves any problem, which is hard to say because we really don't have a problem yet. We're all anticipating a problem, but there isn't a
Mhm.
problem yet. So I think that's the other uncertainty. But the idea is that a short-term solution solves the problem, and then that's it. We don't need to go any further. But if the short-term solution does not solve the problem, there is a plan, and it's been publicly posted. I have a copy of it. It's on our planning website and the town website for a permanent long-term solution, which is actually a full physical separation of pedestrian and bicycle traffic. That would
Right.
take a lot more money and time, and I think that's the main obstacle to that solution,
Right.
especially
and-
given in the face of there's no specific problem right now.
Right. So there's no money or approval for that yet. That is just a proposed
Correct.
long-term solution. Yes, right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Mhm. So if anyone has thoughts or questions about this, Mary Beth, I'm happy to go back and just get a handle on just what does Marcia have to say about the time period?
Yeah. Well,
on her-
I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm on that rail trail committee, so
Okay.
when Masha gives her reports, I have an opportunity to ask her questions too, but
Okay, great.
I like seeing it from both perspectives of this
Agreed.
meeting.
Agreed.
But
Agreed.
yeah.
Well, and I think that that's a real benefit of having you on the rail trail committee as well as the commission, because
Yeah.
you bring the information back and forth to
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. No, it's good.
So,
I just hope there aren't any vigilante plant pot moving things going on where that long of a period. I think, and they are very light. That's why I was surprised. They're very light. They're easy to move. So I think but I don't want to start solving problems that don't exist. So
Exactly.
let's
Yeah.
not.
Exactly. Yeah,
So, not go there. All right.
that's exactly right.
yeah, Karen, did you have a comment?
No, I was thinking along the lines of what Mary Beth just said. I am concerned that those planters might move around pretty easily. And, we've had that experience with the cones in the trail. So if they're out there for any length of time, it might be we might face that problem, but maybe we won't. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it would be really helpful to have feedback from people using the park, not, more than the stakeholders, but just kind of everyday people walking through. So I
Sure.
think it's a good plan. Yeah.
And on that note, Karen, just access, it's a public way.
Mm-hmm.
If access gets blocked, it's going to be a much, especially if it gets blocked with, I mean, cones are one thing, moving planters around is something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
So if access is blocked, the town can't let that go on.
Right.
So I wouldn't worry too much about the solution for something like
Yeah.
that. I think it
Yeah,
would be very obvious. Yeah.
Okay, anything else on this issue? All right, I think for now, we kind of set this on the shelf until it's the time to be putting the planters out, which is likely spring. I want to just introduce you to Gracia de la Cruz. Hi, Gracia.
Hi, how are
Gracia
you?
is a liaison from the Council on Aging. We haven't had a direct liaison for a couple of years, so it's great to have you.
Thank you very much. Nice to meet everybody.
Meet you.
Member parking concerns. I still didn't make it over to that parking lot. I'm so sorry. I promise I'll do it before the next meeting. I'm going to circle that on my agenda so I don't forget it. So the next 3 items were items that Lowell suggested that we sort of circle back on, items that we had talked about previously, but hadn't come to a definitive solution or decision on it. Given that he's not here, I'm kind of thinking maybe we hold those till next month. There's nothing that's really super urgent. And they're ones that have been kind of on the back burner for a while. So I would prefer talking about those when Lowell is here and can share his concerns. Is that okay with you guys?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So Sudbury Street crosswalk, that would be well, there is a crosswalk. The suggestion has been to have a crossing light, perhaps something similar to the lights at the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, where they cross Commonwealth Avenue, and there's another one on, is that Sudbury Road, I think. So I don't know the cost. I have heard an estimate of around $5,000. Jennifer, do you have a guesstimate? Is that anywhere in the ballpark? I'm sorry.
So, no, that's okay. That's okay. There's the cost of the light fixtures. There's one on either side of the road. But rarely is it just a matter of putting in light fixtures. Typically, there's a curb alteration. And often if that is the case, which it usually is, and there's usually restriping of the roadway, the costs have a tendency to rise because now you're talking about either cutting asphalt or adjusting a curb or putting in a detectable warning surface or striping. Typically, they run closer to like $25,000 when all is said and done, when the whole thing is said and done. I don't know about this particular crossing. If we already have a curb cut on both sides and we already,
Yes.
it's just a matter of restriping and putting in the lights, it's probably obviously a lot less cheap, a lot less expensive, but it's not clear to me right now what it is. It can get up more typically in the $20,000 to $30,000 range.
Mary Beth, did you say that there were already curb cuts there?
I believe so. I mean, I don't know if I want to be quoted, but I've, used that recently. And there is a curb cut on the Stowe Street side of it.
Yeah.
And when you go directly across, and it's also painted as a crosswalk there. And when you get to the library side, there's also a cut, I believe.
Mary Beth, do you remember? So one of the issues is that if you're going to make an improvement, a public works improvement like this, you can't halfway make the improvement.
Yeah.
You have to fix all of the issues that crosswalk might have that
Yep.
are not being addressed now, but you can't just fix one thing without fixing everything. So
Sure.
do you remember if there is a detectable warning? In Concord Center, it has a tendency to be like an iron plate with little bumps on it.
Oh, that's a good question. I do not remember. I know what you mean, but I don't recall whether or not that has that.
So if it doesn't, it would need it. And in order
I'm
to put
thinking
that,
it doesn't. I'm thinking it doesn't.
That's what I think too. And it would need it. And then you need to re-pour the concrete, that whole concrete section of the sidewalk so you can put that in.
In fact, if I'm remembering correctly, even the curb cut there, because the road is kind of chewed up and
Yep.
screwy, and it's not even a perfect curb cut. It doesn't.
Right.
there is a curb cut, but it doesn't line up exactly with the line on the road. So that's why I don't
Right.
think there's one of those little bumpy things either.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and if you like, this is what our commission probably already knows this, but it's worth repeating that. For example, if a public building or entity wants to make improvements to their building, they're not allowed to make improvements to some parts of the building without improving access across the entire building. In other words, you can't go and, paint your bathroom a 24 karat gold without first fixing all the ADA problems that your building has. You have to do that first. So the same is true in our public right of ways. You can't just put in the sidewalk lights and say, okay, we'll come back and do these other things later. If it's
Yeah.
going to be fixed, it has to be 100% fixed, which is
Yeah.
why the costs go up.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, Karen and then Janet.
Do you have any description of what type of lights we're talking about here? What type of crossing lights? In my mind, I have like a stoplight with or those flashing lights, which those are, they're not always reliable.
No.
But there's a big problem with those lights on the rail trail on Old Marlborough Road. And I think it has something to do with the fact that they're solar powered. And there's been an ongoing issue with those lights, which Marcia is well aware of. So I'm just wondering if there might, if there's another option out there or something more reliable. I don't know.
Those are great questions.
Yeah. Janet?
Isn't this, it seems to me that dealing with the lights on that road, and especially if the cost is what it's predicted to be, isn't solving our problem with the library. We're putting up a light, but it's still, for me, the light doesn't do me any good. I still can't get from, I can, but it would take me all day to get from the parking lot into the library. And as Meryl said, by the time she gets into the library, she's exhausted if you use that. So I wonder if we aren't tackling the wrong problem here. I wonder if it's worth, especially if it's $25,000, how effective it is to have just a light there. I mean, there's no other solution, but I don't see that as being anything that's going to help us.
Mhm.
It's kind of, I can't think of the word that I want. Stopgap, is that the word?
Mhm.
Or it makes the library feel good, but it doesn't help us.
Well, Janet, if I could just interject really quickly,
Yep.
typically those pedestrian crossing lights, Karen, these are some of the questions you're asking. Typically they look a lot, they're not stop lights, right? They're just for pedestrian crossing. They're automated by a pedestrian pushing a button. They come in with various bells and whistles. Some have flashing lights. Some that are powered by solar power. Some have audio sounds as well as the flashing lights. So there's variations in that way, but it's more like that, like the one you're talking about on Marlborough Road, than it is like any other light that we're talking about. It's the in that family. Janet, typically the need for a light like that is based on data. It's based on traffic counts and traffic speed and the number of people that use the crosswalk. It's usually our public works department that decides what intersection or what crossing is in need of a crosswalk light like this. If there's too many across the town, people stop paying attention to them, unfortunately. There also need maintenance and operational costs are associated with that. So the town doesn't put them in unless they're really necessary. So that would be the first hurdle to cross. And Janet, to your point, I think a more functioning drop off for the library on the library side of the road, which is almost
Yep.
always filled with cars that are parked there temporarily, which is
Yep.
like 4 hours or whatever it is that the people
Yep.
park in those parking spots. I think that addressing the way that drop off is used and the size of the drop off potentially, I don't know if there's room, but I think that if we were going to point our finger at another more effective problem solving scenario, I think that would be where I would want to point to.
I
rather
agree with
than
you
the traffic count.
entirely, and that makes so much more sense.
Mhm. Well, I'm
But-
thinking, yeah, go ahead, Mary Beth.
Well, no, I just was thinking that, I guess the idea of the light there, I was thinking that it would be more like the light that you see going across, I don't know what the road is, Main Street or Commonwealth Avenue, at the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, the audible light, which is also a stoplight, right? It stops the cars, you get a picture, a little logo of a person walking, and it's visual, it's audio, it stops the car. That I was thinking more like that. But also to Janet's point, I agree that, but this seems like getting a light is more attainable. We fought with them for 2.5 years about getting accessible parking in a place that made sense, that didn't burden people with disabilities, that wasn't a barrier, and we didn't get anywhere. So I feel like, well, I don't want to give up the idea of pushing for the light to just go chasing something else, which was unattainable for 2 years, 2.5 years. Why is it any more attainable now? I don't know. Maybe it is, but I don't know. So that's kind of.
Yeah, I'm kind of guessing it's less attainable at this point because it's like
They
we're all
did it.
done.
Right, exactly. That's.
Yeah,
okay.
Janet?
I want to respectfully disagree with Mary Beth. I think that the more we fight to have parking in those spots that are already available and accessible at the library on the Sudbury Road side of the library makes more sense. I would just make more noise. I would just make, these are your options, $25,000 for a light or a sign by those spots that says handicap parking. Which do you want? I think that the library is starting to pay attention to us. I think I just have heard some vibes that somebody spoke up at an open house last Sunday about the lack of accessibility in the library. So, and this was inside. They said it's just too big. But she also mentioned the parking. I guess I'm a little bit feisty. I would go for trying to get those drop-off spots made into people who are dropping off books. If there are other places they could use, for heaven's sakes, they can use our parking spaces on the other side of the building. They can have a drop-off
So
box
Janet,
there.
that area that we're talking about on the Sudbury Road side of the library, that's meant to be a drop off.
Yes.
So there wouldn't be able to be parking in there.
Well,
Unfortunately,
I'm saying we should fight for it.
to keep it a drop off. I don't think
Oh.
you'll ever, they're required to have a drop off area
They are,
for books and the Minuteman book wagon that comes around
yeah,
and
okay.
does book exchange. It's also meant to be a drop off so that people who don't want to walk or can't walk across the parking lot can be dropped off right at an accessible entrance and go into the building. Unfortunately, there's a lot of entitled folks here that use our library that park in that spot saying, oh, I'll just be a minute, and then they're gone for an hour. And not only can the book van not use those spaces to drop off, but nor can anyone else who needs to use that for a drop off, can't use it. So I think that is something we could address with the library. I have a feeling it bothers them as well.
What was it? That what?
I have a feeling it probably bothers them as well, that people are using that as parking
Oh, yeah, it
spaces
must,
rather than a
yeah.
drop off. Yeah.
But why can't they then make more spaces in that same, there were only 2 spaces, aren't there? Why can't they make 5?
That is not the library. That's more of a public works concern, because now you're talking about street parking and you start to get too close to the corner. There's a whole bunch of like distances from the
okay,
corner that you can't mess around with. What I would say though, Jean, I do have to jump off. The Sudbury crosswalk though, if we really want to engage, it's the Concord Public Works. We need to talk to them and we need to engage them as a partner in this and have them evaluate that crossing, tell us how much it would cost. We can tell them if we are able or willing to donate some dollars to get that to happen. But that would be the first step, is to engage them, because they would be the ones to really, help us out on that.
So I would be happy to reach out to the DPW and let them know we have this concern, invite them to the next meeting.
Perfect.
Okay, and one other thing I'm thinking about, given that just generally parking and safety and so forth for people with disabilities is a big concern at the library. Maybe it's worth reaching out to the Concord Bridge. They're new in town, they're the new guys, they want to be printing the news and talking about things that are relevant. So here's a good opportunity for them to take on an issue that's a concern. And it's a concern, you know, that safe parking, safe crossing is a concern for our commission, but also for, you know, again, parents who are pushing strollers or just people who generally walk slowly or whatever.
Jean, would you call them and say, would you like to do a story about this issue?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to call them. Can I give them your names?
Oh,
Yes.
sure. Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
I see all nodding heads. Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
call them and then if you want to, you could bring up the whole library issue. I mean, you can bring up whatever you want to.
Sure.
Because I think we have people on our side in this issue. We don't
Mhm.
have the library board on our side, but I think we have other people. I think we have the general public on our side.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that are concerned. And again, it's a concern for our folks, but also for other people in town. You know, that's
Yeah.
the whole thing about universal access. It's really for everyone. Okay, so I will
May I
reach,
suggest you give Betsy Levinson a call. She's the one who would do the story.
okay. All right, so I will contact the DPW, let them know about this concern and invite them to the next meeting. I'll reach out to the Concord Bridge. And I promise, Mary Beth, I'll go look at that parking spot.
Yeah, I'm starting to forget what my complaint about it even was.
I think it was that they made it small.
They made it so, yeah, you can't deploy the ramp to get out of my car, right?
Right.
They narrowed the 8-foot thing to, yeah,
Mhm.
squeezed more spaces in, right?
Yeah,
Where is that, Mary Beth?
290 Baker Ave,
Oh, okay.
the
Nothing.
medical building over there. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Bob, I see your hand up.
Just on the part of this that involves the parking in that drop-off space in front of the library. If that, I mean, I guess that, you know, really does bear upon safety, because it can be, somebody needs to stop there and it's locked up by those cars. It's just
Mhm.
too bad. Isn't that a policing issue? I mean, do we need to involve the police in a discussion of it? Because otherwise, how is it going to be, you know, enforced that people do not do that?
Mhm. Yeah, certainly if the police can keep an eye out for cars that are parked there. I suppose it would be possible to put up a sign that says, "Do not park."
Yeah, and then they can get tagged by the cops if they do.
Would anybody like to reach out to the police and ask?
Mm.
Not you. Okay.
Well, I asked them what, Jean?
Ask them if they would ticket people who are parked in the drop-off spots.
Oh, how are they gonna know? I mean,
Well,
how
if
are
they
gonna
drive
know that-
by and there's a car sitting there without a driver in it.
I think it's a lot to ask. And I
you?
haven't had much luck. When I've called up the police to say, you know, I just tried to park at the, I don't know, Neshoba Bakery, and there was a motorcycle parked in the hatch that I needed to get out of my car. Is there any way, I got the license plate of the motorcycle. Is there any way you could at least like give the guy a warning or tell? They said, No, you should have called us from the parking lot. Unless you were in the parking lot, well, then we would have sent somebody over, but we're not going to do anything about that. I just feel like they don't like to be punitive to people,
Right.
which I appreciate when it's, you know, and so, and even around here, like with White Pond, when there's issues of like big parties and noise, and if you call them up, they don't like to be punitive. It's an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah.
That's why I immediately said, not me.
Okay. Well,
Don't they go back and forth looking at whether the parking meters are expired and that kind of thing?
yeah, they do have somebody that goes around and does that. I've seen someone out ticketing cars.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, I mean, we have a new police chief, acting police chief right now. Joe O'Connor is retiring in 2 weeks, 1 week, something very soon, certainly before Christmas. And, you know, things may change a bit. And, you know, we can hope for a change to be a little more firm about handicap parking.
Well, maybe the library is who has to reach out about
I
that.
think so.
Yeah. Well, there's also a new library director who started a couple months ago, maybe. Maybe it would be worth having her come to one of our meetings as well and just
Oh.
share with us about the library.
And
Sounds
then
like
it
a
also
good
seems
idea.
fair because we complain so much about them. It seems fair that we talk to her.
Okay. All right, I will reach out to her as well.
Is it possible, like, I don't know, somebody suggested it, why don't they put a big book drop box in the Stowe Street lot? Let people drop their books off there. Isn't that possible? No? Seems
don't
like it would at least lighten up the number of people who have to park in those spots to drop off books on the, you know, that tie up the parking. If they just put it somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's reasons not to,
But it sounds like the problem isn't the people who are pulling up and dropping off books. It's the people who are pulling it in there and stopping and parking and getting out of their car and going in the library.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we don't have solutions to everything, but I'll invite her to our meeting. Hopefully she can come to the next meeting as well. Okay. Any new business? I don't have any correspondence or miscellaneous. And public comment. Okay.
I could just mention that there's something about what I did earlier today, which was to attend a demonstration at the Harvey Wheeler Community Center of their assistive listening equipment.
Oh,
You know, they've purchased new equipment, and it's still not totally clear how that equipment functions best and how it becomes really useful. And we had a great opportunity to work with, you know, with town staff. I was able to walk through that entire building, across from the auditorium into the clock tower room, and even downstairs, and be able to hear with the devices that they have.
that's great.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Well, you and your group have really, pushed on this issue. And it's wonderful to hear that at least at one building, it's maybe not perfect, but they've got something that functions pretty well.
And we're about to move on to the Kais Road facility next week.
Good.
We've been
Excellent.
we've been over at the townhouse, and we're systematically going through all of the facilities and where they have purchased and installed new equipment and making sure that it's working the way it's supposed to work for people who have hearing impairment. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Janet?
Bob, just for the minutes, can you tell me what this equipment is?
What was that question?
Just for
What's the
the
name of
minute-
the equipment?
Oh, it's called the FM Plus system. It's from Williams Sound. There are various, companies that produce assistive listening systems. One of the popular ones around is called Listen. And they have that at the library. But in my experience and the experience of the people I'm working with, the equipment that comes from Williams Sound is a lot better.
So is that what got installed at the Harvey Wheeler Center?
Yeah, that's what's installed at the Harvey Wheeler Center. We're figuring out things like, does it work at its best when it's hooked into electronically hooked into a pre-existing audio system in the facility, or when it stands by itself, and it does have the capability of standing by itself, and it seems to work better that way.
Okay. Well, good to know that's working. Linda?
Yeah, thank you. As always, I really appreciate the focus, and the feistiness is good on these issues, I think. So that's great. I have a question for Bob. And I know this has been a long process for he and his group going, tackling the assisted listening devices. Are we at a point where respective staff or meeting staff in each of these buildings is able to do what they need to do to make it available to the public?
Yeah, I do think we are, our group wanted to be, certain that before we try to tell people, like staff, what to do and to tell, the hearing impaired people who come, what they should do in order to hear. We wanted to be sure that the equipment is functioning optimally, and I think we're really just about at that point and can move on. This is an ongoing collaborative effort.
Okay, that's great, because I think in the past, there's been comments about equipment existed, but whoever was running the meeting or who might be available in the building didn't even know how to access it or how to help people access it. So it sounds like that's part of the process yet to be nailed down. So
It's definitely getting better.
good.
But it's
Thank
not
you
all
for
done.
Thank you for all you've done on this, and thank you to all of you.
Well, that's great news, Bob. And I agree. Thank you to you and your group for pushing forward with this issue.
Well,
I know it was a slow process and kind of frustrating along the way, but you're getting to a great result.
yeah, and I think we have to acknowledge that it's been a very hard time, for the town to make changes. They've been short-staffed. They've been dealing with the pandemic, and they're maybe beginning to come up for air.
Well, that's good.
But Ryan Orr, who's the facilities manager for the town, has been a tremendous help, and And we've been working also with Mark Polly, who represents Minuteman Media. They're both very much involved, and Kelly has been, the town assistant town manager has been supporting, our working together.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Other things, guys? No, no. Does someone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, Mary Beth
Second.
Second.
and Karen seconded.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, in favor, Jean,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Mary Beth,
Yes.
Linda. Linda, you're a voting member now. Linda's left us. Karen,
Yes.
okay, that's it, I think.
How about Janet?
Janet. Yes,
Okay, next meeting is January 12th. So I will,
Merry Christmas to all.
yes. Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas. Happy Yule. And we'll see you next
Happy
year.
Pagan Christmas tree
Happy
worshiping.
Right, right. Okay, bye, everyone.
I have a
Bye.
good trip, Jean.
Night.
Get back more easily than you went.
Yeah.